Hi, this is Sean. Back again with All Things Black. I have a new person here.
I'm Robert Alexander from Seattle, Washington. Recently graduated from Michigan State Law School, former law enforcement professional, and currently seeking a position in a prosecutor's office after recently taking the bar.
Oh, okay. We scared of him? Okay. All right. So we are going to be talking about colorism today.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So our first question is, what does the word colorism mean to you?
Uh, Colorism just denotes the concept that outcomes for people in the African diaspora can be controlled or impacted by the complexion of that person, their skin. Pretty much it.
Okay. All right. And what do you believe are some examples of colorism?
Uh, One example I can give where I guess a white person or a non-black person sees somebody else who is black and they control the amount of anxiety, or their perception of that person is controlled by the amount of melanin that this black person has. So somebody might meet me and they might have this response that's like, he's racially ambiguous. We don't know how to feel about him. Or, he's very light skinned, so maybe he didn't grow up like that. And I think you can ascertain whatever meaning you want to the quotations there. But I think that non-black people use skin color as a proxy for struggle, for difficulty, for experiences with racism, for their hardness, or their ability to control their anger even. I think skin color means that much to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you can basically insert any example you want. That can be where you go into a grocery store with me and maybe somebody clutches their purse and they put it all the way behind their back if they see a darker skinned black person, as opposed to just putting it under their armpit if it's somebody like me. So I think it's always about spectrums and about places on a continuum, essentially. And that's because that's also how complexion works. So there's a relationship between those two things, and people's reactions, the way they react to black people, corresponds directly with where that black person is on the continuum of blackness.
Why do you believe some people have negative attitudes about light skin, and if you think they do, and why do some people have negative attitudes about dark skin?
I think the the negatives, the positives, all the feelings that we have about skin color in our community are ultimately derived from colonialism and from this idea that skin color was used not as a proxy, but instead as a weapon to sort of get people to argue with each other that wouldn't otherwise. And this idea that if you were lighter skinned, you had a different role. Uh, the idea that your skin color could have an impact directly on the type of work that you do or the relationship with the master. I think that is kind of where it comes from. And then in today's world, that is the derivatives of that are that if you have lighter skin, you seem to have more what I would call marketable appeal.
Hmm.
Darker skin is seen as something that is a fringe activity or a almost pornographic obsession. If somebody has dark skin and you like that dark skin, now you're put into this special category of, oh, they like dark skinned women or they like dark skinned men. That's something that's unique. So it's fetishized. But like I said, it's pornographic because it almost, you could even go as far as to say that a woman might associate the size of a man's virility with the complexion of his skin, because it's about proximity to blackness. And so, again, the sexuality, even how sexually aggressive are they? Well, they're really dark skinned about this. Whereas you might say when someone is doing something halfway, just say, don't be light skinned about it. So you can see that we've turned that into an adjective, but it really does come all the way back to our days in the fields. And knowing that someone that's light skinned might have literally a different role in our racial society and the slave society than they did back in the day. And the ability to use integration, even though we don't consider slave masters having sex with their slaves as integration, that's exactly what it is. It's infusing society with racially ambiguous. And when I say racially ambiguous, I mean that they're mixed, people like myself, but people don't know what they identify as. And so in that way, they're racially ambiguous, infusing them into society and then sort of watching the quote unquote full black people argue about what their role is and how they fit into their community. There's always going to be the people that say one drop, and then you're going to have the people go, well, you can be mixed, but if your skin is lighter, you're not with us. There's so many ways that can go, and I think that is all coming from and stemming from our time in slavery specifically, or even just the interaction between, the white folks in Europe and Africans on the shores of Africa way back when.
Yeah. What role do you believe traditional media plays in promoting color stereotypes?
I think what we see more and more, and people have really done a good job of pointing this out, is that there's this idea that the dark-skinned man will always be with a lighter-skinned woman or whatever.
Yeah,
and
that's
I
a
think
very common.
people have done a good job of calling that out,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say that's the stereotype. But now you're kind of seeing the reverse more. You're seeing a lot of people like me, I guess, that basically date women exclusively that have more melanin than them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there's just a lot of tension in creating families where the parties, the male and female, look different from each other, regardless of how you slice it.
Okay. All right. What role do you believe colorism or color discrimination plays in dating and marriage?
I don't see it.
Or do you think it plays one?
I don't see it at all because I think we make individual decisions. I mean, I don't know that there's a campaign at an individual level to do anything other than find somebody initially that you'd want to sleep with. And then after that, you'd move on to other stuff about them, whether it's their personality or your ability to like stand their annoying habits or whatever. And you kind of go down your checklist like that. But on some level, sociopolitically, not that I want to be Umar Johnson, but you're going to prioritize certain things. So you might say, I'm going to date a black woman. You might just start there so that you'd be willing to sleep with all these other different types of people, but you're only going to be in a relationship with a certain. You could approach it that way. I mean, in some ways, that's how I've approached it in the past. So I understand that, but other than just using race as a disqualifier or qualifier, I don't think it matters because I think when we make individual decisions, it's easy to sum them up and then say, oh, well, there's this large preference, but I don't care what anybody else's preferences are. So that had no role in my analysis at all, other than just I'm going to date a black woman, period. So that's really it.
Do you think it has a role in other? Because so when I've been doing these interviews, a lot of stuff comes up about men. So a lot of people. Do you think that maybe not for you, but do you think that for men that is a thing?
Only the type of men who are really concerned what other people think. Because that's a really specific type of concern to have. I mean, I could never imagine coming to my friends and being like, oh, I'm going to date this dark skinned girl. Are you guys okay with that? No, that's not the type of man that I am. So I can't really imagine that. Now, can I imagine somebody showing a picture of somebody to the group in the group chat and the people in the group chat like, damn, she's ugly. I could see that happening, but I could also imagine responding with, I'm the only one who's going to be sleeping with her, so what difference does it make? So I guess that if it does have an impact, it's only because that particular male is influenced very easily by what other people think. I mean, I just really can't imagine being with somebody to please a bunch of other people. That's just a lot of energy to waste.
Well, a lot of men do have that, preference. So,
A lot of men have.
it's really, 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 really common.
You should be looking for things that you like more so than this generalized, I want light skin with curly hair, with green eyes, which is what I hear a lot from black women complaining about men. Which is that that's what they want. But there's only so many of them that exist. Like there's only so many people like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they still are not going to end up with that. They're still going to end up with somebody else. Like I don't. There's a pecking order, right? So women might start off with, I want a man who's 6 feet tall at least, makes this amount of money at least, etc., etc. You're not going to get it all the time, so you're still going to end up with somebody else. So I don't know. That complaint is unique to me. I don't understand it because I'm a firm believer in the economics of dating. Like you're going to get what you can. Like if you're going to go out to the demand curve and you're going to be like, oh, the demand on this person's extremely high, like to get that person is going to cost me a lot. It's going to cost me a lot in terms of like what I'm willing to sacrifice in our relationship, what I need to look like, etc., etc. And most of us really don't want that. And I know that's how men think. I know for a fact that we'll be like, okay, she's really cute, but she's probably a pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
And you will easily, move yourself down the curve a little bit to find somebody that you actually want to be around. So that's
Okay.
how it works for me.
Okay. All right. So how do you believe gender intersects with colorism? Yeah.
I think guys have it pretty good. I think dudes have
Mm-hmm.
it pretty good because, like, for me, for example, I can't lose because either you like guys my complexion or you don't. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not interested in women that aren't. I would never be interested in women that are not interested in me. So that's fine. We could just take them right off the board. I don't care. And then guess who's left? Everybody who's interested. So that's easy money for me. But I think for women, it could work the other way because if you reside in the camp that's in a minority in terms of preferences, then your pool of the opposite sex has dwindled dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that in that way it could be unfortunate. And so I guess that you could say for people on the quote unquote light skin side of the spectrum, they probably are winning in terms of the economics of this because they're always going to have, whether it's sociological reasons or physical reasons, they're always going to be able to have a larger pool. And I'm not saying that because I believe they should. I'm just literally
No, I know.
I'm speaking to the objective reality that you've already brought to the table, which is
Yeah.
that there's this preference. And I'm saying, okay, if that's true,
Yeah.
then here's how it works out. So yeah, I think that you really can't lose. But people with darker complexion are put at a large disadvantage unless you're a dark skinned male who's
Yeah.
particularly attractive. Because if you're a dark skinned male who's particularly attractive now, you have the option of all of the light skinned people who are interested in dark skinned people. But you also have and I mean like you actually have all of the dark skinned women who are interested in dark skinned men because you now have reached like this unicorn status.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of you that like them, but there's a lot of them that like you.
Yeah, that's true.
So in that way, dark skinned and light skinned men are winning. So really, men are winning on this one. Sorry, hot boy summer. We're winning. So that's what
No, I agree. I agree. So how do you feel about so I watched this video. So with dating, like from my studies with dating, the people who seem to be the most affected by like the color complex are lighter toned men and darker skinned women in dating. So how do you feel about or does it bother you the stereotypical characteristics that people assign to lighter skinned black men? Or is it something that doesn't bother you?
It would annoy me more if I felt like I didn't have markers about me to sort of erase those. Like
Yeah.
I can say right off the bat, go to my Instagram, I'm stronger than I'm physically stronger than 95% of the people of whoever it is that I'm talking to. I'm
Hmm.
stronger than everybody they know right off the bat. And I can just say, watch the videos. Ask your male friends about this. They'll tell you. So like nobody's gonna approach. No one's really gonna be looking or talking to me and assuming that I'm like fragile, for example,
Yeah.
or whatever. And then unfortunately, when it comes to just sort of being manipulative or whatever it is, or easily gullible, or kind of the characteristics that people would associate with like a Drake, like oh, you just fall in love with everybody. You can just show people that's not the case rather easily. You can just
Yeah.
blow somebody off or not give them attention, and now you're just a typical male. You're not even light skinned anymore. So I think that I've never felt pinched in by that. I've never felt boxed in by it. The only thing that it's ever really annoyed me is that people automatically assume I don't have empathy,
Mm.
which is annoying.
Mm.
um, which is really annoying. They assume that I'm not capable of understanding what struggle is just because they assume that I don't know that I've never had it. Um, so I don't really like that, but there's nothing to prove.
Yeah.
There's nothing to prove. So, and it doesn't really stop anybody from pursuing you, in my opinion. When
So
people sign up for a quote unquote light skin, then they sign up for all the stuff they think it comes with, and then they can just find out it doesn't exist there, and then it's kind of like, oh, well, maybe it's not true. So
yeah. So you think that is that do people assume that lighter skinned men are less empathetic? You think from what
I
you've experienced?
think it's a weird combination of less masculine, but also less empathetic with
Yeah.
struggle.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll give you another example, like Future versus Russell Wilson,
Oh yeah.
and it cracks me up because I'm like,
Yeah. Future. I mean,
it's
Russell Saw.
like Future could never win in a physical altercation with Russell Wilson. Like he would get destroyed. Just Russell is 5'9", 215 pounds of muscle, gets
Yeah.
hit for a living, and the other guy is perpetually high and has probably, I don't know, 160 pounds at 6'2". He get destroyed. It's not even close. At 5'5", I take a matchup with him any day. I want nothing to do with Russell. Nothing. So it's just like that's an example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It just
Okay.
defies reality.
Okay. So our next question is okay, so let me ask you this one because of your like experience in like criminal justice field and so what role do you or do believe colorism plays in the judicial system, if any?
This one, out of all the questions, to me, this is the most relevant question because everything else that we talked about happens in people's head,
Hmm.
and I really don't care what happens in people's heads. But criminal justice, though, what we've seen from judges is that they will they will be more severe and punish much harder with black people in general than they would anybody else for the same crime. And so I think that we're not going to be able to find statistics on this because you're going to have to be able to assign a 1 or a 0 to skin complexion, which we're not going to be able to do. But if we could, I would be willing to bet that the darker your skin is, the easier it is to convict you. Like the jury is more likely to find you guilty. I would
Yeah.
bet that. And then I would also bet that the judge would be more willing to give you a longer sentence. And that's happened. I'm talking about this even within the black demographic. But again, there's no statistics to support that. because we don't have a way to turn complexion into a 1 or a 0. So again, you can't measure it, but everything that we know about our society, coming back to your original question, tells us that it follows.
Yeah. So my degree is actually in criminology and criminal justice, and so I have found one thing, but it was, I haven't read that much into it, but that does confirm your point. I can
I can give you the example that I think you might be raising, but I don't know. The Trayvon Martin incident gave us
no. Well, I found it like a oh yeah, so here's this one that I found. It was actually written in 2017. And it's called, if you want to get up or anything, it's called Looking Criminal and the Presumption of Dangerousness, and it's called Afrocentric Facial Features, Skin Tone, and Criminal Justice. And then so yeah, I know that in that one they do. And then there was one more, because those are the only two I found. One more where they talked about, it's in 2015. It's skin color in the criminal justice system, and it's called Beyond Black and White Disparities in Sentencing. And so it both of those confirmed your point that um, there seems to be like a color issue when it comes to yeah yeah
Yeah.
yeah, when it comes to policing and sentencing, etc.
Yeah, no, I mean that's pretty loud, but the bigger one, and because it has socioeconomic implications, is looking at what happened in that Trayvon Martin trial, where basically you put witnesses on the stand from Florida, and the language, the dialect of English that those people use is not something that juries are willing to recognize.
Rachel.
So, yes.
It's so funny that you bring her up because I'm reading this book now. It's called Color Stories. It's by this lady named Dr. Jeffrey Ann Wilder, and she literally she has a whole section of the book about colorism and Rachel, and yeah, so that's really crazy you brought that up.
But that's because, again, coming back to one of the first things I said, if we look at color as a proxy for struggle and poverty, right? This person is the ultimate example because you see that they are dark skinned, but they also come from a poor person in the American South, which is where our poor people are anyway. So you're looking at literally the lowest level that you can get socioeconomically in American culture without being gay, which is a black female in the agrarian South, period. That's just what at statistically, right? So that person, and all of the stuff the jury is assuming about them, she gets up there, and whether she is those things or not, her language confirmed whatever their bias was.
Yeah.
And I talked about this with my girlfriend all the time. Whether or not you believe that when you say it's three cats, whether you believe that that is instructive or not of how many cats there are, most white people will say there are 3 cats. That's subject verb agreement. And that subject verb agreement is not something that's a part of AAV at all. We don't do it.
Yeah.
We just don't do subject verb agreement in our culture. So when we don't use subject verb agreement, people in the jury pretend they don't know what we're talking about. And so that's a proxy for skin color now. Because if I get up there and I say it, my blackness will get turned all the way up. I will no longer be biracial if I say we didn't went to the stove, as opposed to how I would normally say it, which is, yeah, we got in the car and my girlfriend and I went to the store.
Yeah.
Those two sentences mean the exact same thing, but the outcome is dramatically different depending on the listener.
Yeah.
But you can see that I can leave my light skinness way behind just simply by verbalizing certain aspects of our language. So, I just think that kind of tells you the story in criminal justice.
Yeah, it
That's
did.
something that is instructive for how criminal justice works.
Okay.
So.
So okay. So what I guess this will go back. This kind of. Do you believe colorism has any role in like? I think we kind of already answered this, but like jobs, status, socioeconomic status. I guess employment opportunities the same as job status. Um, so like the systems.
I think the colorism comes into play mostly in academic settings.
Yeah.
The employment setting is different because once you get your job, you're in a different box than when you apply.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if we look at literally skin color and we can say what type of names do we associate with skin color? Like, is somebody named Zadorian? Is it likely that they're light skinned? Is it possible that they're biracial? Sure. But if they're biracial, does that tell you that the white parent wasn't a part of the naming process and therefore probably not present? That might be a fair guess.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like, you can look at that and say, and that's a generalization. They could tear that apart if they want to. I would say, just if we were to run stats on it, then I would say, oh, what is the person's name? It's Davon Jackson. Okay, well, Davon Jackson is probably a very much black male. So when he applies to a job, he's applying to one less, Charles Schwab Bank. Do I think he has a different chance of getting a job than Bobby Alexander? I absolutely do. That's a fact.
Yeah.
And that's before they saw the applicants at all.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I was gonna say they do have a lot of studies where they talk about like black sounding names and how like if you have a black sounding name you would be like much better off putting something else on your application than applying with your name.
right.
Because
Right. But I'm saying for your purposes, you got to take the next step logically and say, is it likely that the person with the black sounding name is also a dark skinned person? And I'm saying that I would be interested in that, and I would bet that it is, just because I think the chances of them being biracial gets lower and lower. People with creative names, but there are certainly less. So that's where I'm going with that.
okay.
Yeah, and then the academic thing is obvious. I mean, I think school principal or whatever in the public school system, if they are not black, sees a student go in, that gets in trouble, and they assume things about the family potentially based on complexion, the results will be different. Because it's the same, it's just like criminal justice, it's the same exact thing. Do I think that your black mom's going to come to school? And what do I think about black mothers? Okay, now we're right down the same path that we started on, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean.
Okay. All right. And so we just have a few more. So okay, so these two can be tied together. So do you believe you have ever been mistreated because of your skin tone? And also, do you believe there's a difference between colorism and being mistreated because you're light skinned, such as being called like light bright or being beat up because you're light skinned? Some people have said that's happened to them. So do you think that and colorism is the same thing? And also, do you have any experiences with again being
I mean,
discriminated
any treatment
for your skin tone,
for my skin
not
specifically,
for like race?
general.
Yeah.
I haven't experienced that as much. I mean, I had people in high school that were mad because my father was present in my house.
Yeah.
I had people in college who were mad because my parents were still together, because that's not things that they associate with black experience. But I could have been any color and that would have been present. But because I was light skinned, it was worse, because then they had so much self hate that they thought the reason that I had those things is because one of my parents was white, which to me was more of a statement on their ignorance than my reality. So I couldn't take it as anything but damn, they really had a hard life. When you have somebody tell you like, your daddy, I'm like, yeah. He with your mama, and I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you don't know nothing about us. I'm like, okay. Um, damn, that sucks for you. Like, that's kind of where my head was at with it. So what am I supposed to say? I can't extrapolate that out. So I don't know if that was really about complexion or
that was about poverty. I don't know which one it was. So my experiences with colorism are mostly just getting roasted in the lunchroom like everybody else. But I could tell you for every time I got called undercooked toast, my best friend James, who was black as tire, got called burnt toast. So it really never made a difference. And I was just like, we don't like each other. That's just what it is. Black people don't like each other. They're always gonna find something wrong with us. You know?
Yeah.
Because if it's not that, it's gonna be you should brush your hair. If you brush your hair, then you're a pretty boy. So it's like, where are we going?
Is who is responsible for breaking the cycle of colorism, and do you think it will ever end?
I got about a 1% chance of it ending. But that's because we have to have the conversation so often and it doesn't fit a lot of the time. I mean, for example, somebody might say Beyonce is successful, but she's only uber successful because she's light skinned. I don't care. So that's my thing. I'm going to celebrate somebody's success and leave it at that. I'm not going to try to qualify their success based on some complex, like their complexion, or you could say, oh, Beyonce is only successful because she's beautiful, but then somebody's going to say, we only think she's beautiful because she's light skinned. It can go on forever. But we do that in our community because the jealousy levels are always on 10, in my opinion. The jealousy levels are always on 10. We can always find a reason. If I have kids with my girlfriend who's more black than me, it's going to be, oh, well, they didn't have it hard, so they're not, they don't, or they use subject verb agreement, so they're not one of us. It's never ending. There's always something that we can drag each other for. So I don't really have a ton of hope on that level. But in terms of responsibility, it would be our responsibility. I can't imagine an intervention by white people that black people would accept. What does that look like? This white person coming down saying, hey, black people, stop arguing about complexion. And then unanimously, all the black people who dislike each other but hate white people equally turn around and say, but you started it. You don't get to talk about this because you started it. So now what?
Yeah.
But some of these conclusions have to logically fit. So I don't see that happening because we won't accept anything from the outside, but on the inside we're obsessed with it. We've been obsessed with this for what, 300 years? We've been obsessed with our hair for 300 years. We've been obsessed with our skin for 300 years. Probably 400 realistically. But the first time a white person showed up in Africa, I'm sure a black person was like, looking at the hair like, what does it do? And I think since that moment, there's been another option. And if there's another option, people are going to argue about it. It's just what it is. So, not very optimistic, but that's what experience tells me.
Okay. Well, I feel like it could be. I mean, like, I feel like the origin of colorism is white people's fault.
Sure.
The origin of it.
Sure.
Now, why does it continue? Not white people as a whole, but I mean, I said what I said. Why does it continue today? I guess it's still, brainwashing, white supremacy, all that. That could be, why it's still going on today. But yeah, I don't think they would have anything to do with changing the situation today. I don't think so.
Well, let me ask you
this.
If you post a picture on Instagram of your braids right now,
mm-hmm.
Do you think any white people will say anything to you except your braids are beautiful?
No, I don't think they would. No, they wouldn't comment on them.
They won't comment. But will you get at least one black male and female to be like, should have went with the flat iron or whatever? There's always at least one.
They wouldn't say it to me, but maybe.
There's always at least one person who's going to be like, well, you could have done it this way. Or you could have done it that way. Or if a black woman posts a picture of her hair straightened, even if it's her own hair, you will get at least one sister to comment on there. Girl, be the queen that you really are, comma, insert whatever advice that was unsolicited. That's where, like my girlfriend just commented, You could have just wore it natural, sis. You could have just wore it natural. I mean, my girlfriend said that she could post a picture and then somebody would have commented, "You don't need to rock your hair like that, sis. You beautiful with your hair." But that's what we do to each other.
Oh,
This
your
is why
girlfriend
people,
said someone has commented that on her picture? Like, commented, like, you should wear your hair natural?
Has someone said that?
Someone ever said that to me?
Yeah. Yeah, she said yes.
When I wear weave,
Mm.
when I wear weave,
Can you hear her?
Yeah, I can hear her.
when I wear weave, I get a lot of people telling me that I should just wear my hair natural.
So there's always going to be commentary within our community. These are not white people that are telling you this, right? White people just, oh my God, it's beautiful.
Then when I come to work with weave versus when I wear my hair natural,
Mm-hmm.
and I come to work with weave, all the white people say is, "Did you change your hair?"
And then we're mad that they said anything. So, that's where it's at. So when you talk about responsibility for the continuation of it, I have to look at us and just say that's our favorite thing to do. So.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Bobby. I appreciate talking with you. I appreciate your girlfriend telling her story too. So I'm gonna go ahead and go.
Okay.
And bye.
All right. Okay.